Hello, Wheel of Time community, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together, we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time book series. How you doing, Tim?
Doing okay. A little under the weather. How about you?
I'm good. We just got back from a cruise. It's Valentine's Day. And I am excited that we still have a weekend left before we have to go back to normal life.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. So before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. We assume that you have read the entire series, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. All right, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today, we'll be discussing chapters 48 and the first part of 49 of the Dragon Reborn, where the girls finally get to Tyr and enlist some allies to help with the hunt for the Black Ajah. Chapter 49 is a little weird and very long, so we split it up. We'll cover the front half that concerns the girls in this episode, and we'll talk about Matt and Tom's adventures next week. Chapter 48 is called Following the Craft, and the icon is the Avendasora leaf.
Here's a quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. The Supergirls are still on the darter, the slow corkscrew motion of the boat making both Egwene and Nynaeve extremely seasick. It's relief to everyone when they finally dock at Tyr. Their rings are tucked away, and they're going by aliases while in the city, with so much hatred of anything having to do with the power. Egwene still has a major chip on her shoulder, and we are stuck in her head as she acts like a sulky teenager, defiantly opposing Nynaeve any way she can, even when it makes no sense. Once on their horses, Nynaeve asks for suggestions from the other two for how to look for the Black Ajah without them finding out the girls are looking, and Elaine immediately suggests a thief taker. It sounds good to the others, and Egwene wants to find an inn, but Nynaeve immediately vetoes that idea. Liandrin knows them, and they have to assume the others have been given a description of what they look like. The Black Ajah sisters will be watching inns, waiting to spring their trap. Eggs and Elaine don't know of an alternative, but Nynaeve tells them that she'll know it when she sees it. She leads them through the streets of Tyr until she finds Tyr's version of a wisdom, a wise woman called Mother Gienna. Nynaeve asks for a cure for a queasy stomach, and Mama G lets them in. She makes a tea for Nynaeve's nausea, and after some pointed questions from Nynaeve that leads Mama G to suspect she follows the craft, they start to talk herbs. They settle down as if testing each other, tossing questions and answers back and forth faster and faster. Sometimes the questioning lagged a moment when one spoke of a plant the other knew only by another name, but they picked up speed again, arguing the merits of tinctures against teas, salves against poultices, and when one was better than the other. Slowly, all the quick questions began shifting towards the herbs and roots one knew that the other did not, digging for knowledge. Egwene began to grow irritable listening and interrupts Nynaeve, asking if she really thinks she needs to know these things, reminding her that she's not a wisdom any longer. Nynaeve snaps at her, and an exasperated Elaine asks Mama G how to cure two women who will not stop arguing. There's a little more talk, and Mama G is glad of their company. Nynaeve asks if she has a spare bedroom they can rent from her. Mama G is no fool. She can tell by their fine horses and accents that they are a long way from home, and she wants to know what they're up to. Nynaeve tells her that they are after some people. They stole some things, Nynaeve went on, from my mother, and they did murder. We are here to see justice done. Egwene is not pleased with the half-truths Nynaeve is telling. Nynaeve warns that the women they're looking for are dangerous dark friends, and the reason they aren't at an inn is because these women are keeping an eye out for them. Mama G knows a thief catcher that can help them out and goes off to get him. When she's gone, Egwene turns on Nynaeve, aiming to wound. Eggs tells her that she's learning well to be an Aes Sedai. She manipulates people as well as Moraine. Fed up with all her BS, Elaine marches up to Egwene and slaps her across the face, telling her that she goes too far. If they don't learn to live together, they will surely die together. Nynaeve told Mama G as much as she could without risking everything. They may not like it, but they will do what they have to do.
This chapter starts out with Egwene and Nynaeve both being extremely seasick, which is odd because Eggs and Elaine are typically fine with sailing, and Nynaeve is the only one who has issues with motion sickness.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious why Jordan spends so much time emphasizing how sick they feel as the darter pulls in the docks. Maybe he thought it was funny and a way to lighten up the expositional stuff we have to do since we've been away from the girls for a while. But it just seemed odd to me. And I did not understand the corkscrew description he gives of the boat's motion.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm not familiar with boats moving in a corkscrew way, but I also don't know anything about sailing, so it could just be a totally normal boat thing that I'm not aware of. Did this feel odd to you, or is it just me?
You mean the corkscrew thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have absolutely no idea what he's talking about, but again, I haven't spent that much time on boats. But I've never been on a boat that I would describe as corkscrew.
Yeah, me neither.
But, I mean, I guess the back and forth motion of being on a boat, if you're seasick, it could feel like you're going in a giant circle instead of going back and forth. So maybe that's what he meant. It feels like a corkscrew because you're going back and forth. It just feels like you're being turned in one giant circle.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
I guess that makes sense.
I don't know. But yeah, he did spend a lot of time on the whole seasickness thing. And I can only think that's because he wanted one more. Well, for one, he wanted a reason for Nynaeve to go find a wisdom or wise woman? Wise woman,
yeah.
And then also he wanted one more example of Egwene being stubborn because she's totally nauseated, but she refuses to admit it and get healing from Mother Gwenna.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know for sure, but it's possible. He did spend a long time on it, though.
Yeah, I just thought it was weird. Reading about Egwene's dreams just makes me shake my head and chuckle. She is so focused on the dream world being the tool that she'll use to discover stuff about the Black Ajah. All the stuff she sees goes right by her.
Yeah.
One thing that I think we learn from the Wise Ones later on is that Teleran Riyadh is a place where you have to consider what you see, take note of things for later use, and then give time for things to change over more than one visit. Egwene never really has the time or the patience for that, and pretty much only sees the dream world as a tool to accomplish a task, right then and there. So she completely misses the significance of what's going on with the vision of the boys, all the different visions.
Yeah, like Egwene's dreams are actually all useful here. Mm-hmm. She sees Matt dicing with the Dark One and shouting, "I'm coming," at her, which, of course, we know has to do with his wager with Gabriel and him coming to rescue the girls.
Yeah.
And then she sees Rand sneaking toward Kalendor while all around him 6 men and 5 women walked, some hunting him and some ignoring him, some trying to guide him toward the shining crystal sword, and some trying to stop him from reaching it. Rand is on his way to Tyr and the sword right now, and the people she sees are the Forsaken. You know, like Agnor and Bethamel both die in book 1, so there's 6 men and 5 women left at this point.
Right.
And as we discussed last week, they all have different plans and agendas and end up working against each other. So that's what she's seeing for Rand. And then for Perrin, she sees a falcon on his shoulder, which we know is Vale.
Yes, we
But
do.
she also sees some things that will come to play in the next book. She sees White Cloaks putting Master Lewin into a trap to use as bait. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we'll put a pin on that until the shadow is rising. But it's all relevant. She just doesn't understand that yet.
Yeah.
We get an introduction to Tyr, and it's what we could expect to see from a port city. It's one of the major cities, as big as Camelin or Tarvalon, but sea life has infiltrated everything. So it's going to have a slightly different look and feel because of it. Every big city has its own individual quirks and flavor, but all big cities have an underlying similarity. Port towns and cities that rely heavily on their ports for economy are a little different, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they are.
Like they're not quite the same as inland cities. Like there's some similarities, but something about being right on the water infiltrates everything.
Yeah, like you just see everything with a fish. You're talking about how you see like fish and all the different kind of sea craft up all over the place, or what specifically are you talking about?
Well, it's not only that. It's like, okay, so for example, since we were just on a cruise, like, take a look at like Ensenada, for example, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just all the fishing and the, port stuff for their economy. A huge portion of it is tourism. So even when you get further away from the water and you get closer to its inland border, there's still a lot of that port tourism stuff.
Got it.
You still have a lot of, the fresh fish and the, like all of the
ceviche and shrimp and all the things that are
all this
caught
stuff
today.
Yeah. Like it infiltrates, and I mean, Ensenada is a very, very small city. It's not a big city, but like, if you look at Camelin, right, and you look at what Camelin tourism looks like, and the things that the shop owners sell, and the way that people dress, and just the way they go about, the way they talk to each other, the way they go about their lives, it's very, very different from Tyr. Because with Tyr, them being like a port city on the sea, like, first of all, everything's muddy, so everyone's walking around on clogs.
Right.
And everybody talks with fish references. Everybody. The whole freaking town talks in fishing metaphors, So
we don't see that in Camelin or Carrion at all.
Yeah, but you see it a little bit more
in Ilion.
I think, is Ilion a port city? It is,
yes.
right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the same. Tyr and Ilion are definitely not the same. But you see some similarities between Tyr and Ilion, more so than you do, say, between like Tyr and Camelin,
right,
or Tyr and Carrion. Whereas Carrion and Camelin are very, very similar.
I see what you're saying now. Yeah.
So, like, does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Just to me. If you look at the cities here in America, there's a really, really, really big difference between, say, Los Angeles or like New York versus Chicago or Detroit or, I don't know. Like, look at Orlando versus like Austin.
Right.
Like, they're both weird, but like,
yes, they're both.
The port town or port city, like being on the ocean, like being on the sea, infiltrates everything. The entire city.
Right. Okay. I think
I didn't mean to go into
good.
this, but I just noticed there's a big difference between Tyr and the other cities,
Something I always forget, because there are so many details in the series, is that the Stone of Tyr does not have any seams. It was made and formed into its shape using the power. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I always end up imagining it like the Great Pyramids with large stone bricks placed on top of each other.
Uh-huh.
But it's actually one large stone that has been molded into a shape by Aes Sedai from the previous age. It has no seams, which is really cool.
It is cool. But the Terrans are such odd people.
Yeah.
So they despise Chandlers and everything to do with the power. But they're confronted with the power on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. They have this huge power rot monument that draws everyone's attention. And then inside the stone is one of the most powerful tools of the power, in the world.
Yeah.
And not to mention a whole cache of power-related relics and stuff stored away. Mm-hmm. They despise the power, but they surround themselves with it. It's really weird.
Yeah, well, they surround themselves with it, but they sit on it and hide and pretend that it's not there too.
Yeah.
I think it's more of they fear what they don't understand.
Right, but I mean, they can't escape Kalimdor.
Right.
They can't escape the stone. Like, the power is in their face.
Literally every day when they wake up.
Yeah. It's interesting. So Egwene is probably at her most sulky and difficult in this chapter. This entire book has been full of teenage angst, but it's dialed up to 100 here. Even people who like Egwene and are on her side, which I have to admit is not me, they have to admit that she's acting like a spoiled brat in this chapter.
Yeah.
Arguing whenever she can over dumb stuff. Not wanting to give Nynaeve the satisfaction of acknowledging when she's right, even when Egwene can't help but agree with her. And then suffering through her nausea longer than she has to because she refuses to admit that her stomach is bothering her too. Mm-hmm. I feel like Egwene is too old to be doing this, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if she were 14 or 15, this would be right on target for her development. But Egwene is 18 years old, and she's considered an adult woman ready to be married back home in Emond's Field. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what Jordan was doing, making her so awful in the Dragon Reborn, but he turned her into a bratty, sulky teenager, which doesn't even make sense now that they're out risking their lives, you know? Like, maybe if they were still in the tower, I could give Eggs a little bit more leeway, but Elaine is right when she says that if they don't learn to work together, they'll die together. The stakes are too high for Eggs to be making things this difficult on purpose, and she knows that. You know, like, based on who Egwene is later on in this series, it's weird that Jordan took it this far, don't you think?
I absolutely agree.
Like, we've said this before, and I'll say it again. Jordan really had no idea how to write women.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he was intending to, like, make this an arc of some sort, but he really didn't need to. She was fine from starting where she was.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she definitely does some growing up before she becomes, you know, the Amerlin that she becomes.
Yeah.
But just this whole bit where she's sulky and argumentative, I don't understand what he was trying to do here.
Neither do I. I've always been frustrated and puzzled by this.
So we have to talk about Nynaeve and her epic battle of herbs with Mama G.
Yes.
I love that it goes from being a challenge with them spitting questions at each other, fiercely trying to stump the other, to an exchange of knowledge when they start to respect how much the other knows.
Right?
Like, I really love this scene. And again, it highlights what a great wisdom Nynaeve would have been if she stayed in the Two Rivers. She knows her herbs backwards and forwards, and it's just really impressive.
It really is. We don't just get an epic face-off between Nynaeve and Mama G. We get a moment of bonding between Elaine and Nynaeve as well. When Elaine asks Mama G what she would do for two women who can't stop arguing, Nynaeve takes the hint about how dumb she's been and even agrees with Mama G's methods. The three of them laugh about it because Nynaeve's able to admit to herself when she has been foolish. And it brings Elaine, Nynaeve, and Mama G together, paving the way for them to have a place to stay and get a thief catcher.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is a trope or not, but this is not the first time we see Jordan have a character play the "tell me a story, and if I like it, you'll get something" card. Like, we see this with Bail Doman in the first book, we see it with Turok in the second, and we have it here again with Mama G. Jordan seems to like this plot device, and I like the way it gets used. It gives us a chance to see how our characters can spin a tale and how much they've learned about being in the world since they first left the Two Rivers. And Nynaeve nails it here. She's every bit an Aes Sedai, and that she's trying not to become. And it's awesome.
And that's the thing. It is awesome. Elaine is right when she reprimands Egwene and tells her Nynaeve did everything correctly to warn Mama G about the dangers, but still protect their identities.
Yeah.
They are in tier, using false names, trying to hide any connection to the tower because it's not safe for them.
Yeah.
Nynaeve handled the situation really well, especially for someone new at speaking in half-truths, trying to keep everyone safe, but still get what they need. It's not an easy skill, and Egwene is bang out of order for calling her down like that.
100% agree.
I have to say that I mad love that Elaine full-on slaps Egwene in the face.
Yes.
Like, I'm usually not a fan of violence, but Lord Almighty, does she deserve it. Egwene intended to hurt Nynaeve as much as possible when she told her that she's learning well to be an Aes Sedai, manipulating people as well as Moraine. She was 100% intending to cause harm, and she was successful at wounding Nynaeve. So when Elaine slaps her and tells Eggs that she goes too far, I am totally in her court. Like, these women are supposed to be friends.
Yes.
And Nynaeve has been there for Egwene every time she needed her in the past. You don't treat your friends that way, you know? Elaine has been putting up with a lot from these two, so it makes sense that she's finally had enough and just snapped.
And Elaine sums up being an adult perfectly. Egwene says, I do not have to like doing it. I know, Elaine sighed. Neither do I. But we do have to. Too bad Egwene still doesn't get it.
Yeah.
That wraps up Chapter 48. Before we get to Chapter 49, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by Nynaeve's Knowledge of Herbs. Teas, tinctures, salves, and poultices. From Andalay root to worry not, whatever your illness or injury, Nynaeve's herbs have the solution. When you run out of power and swords can't help you, Nynaeve's herbs can. Nynaeve and her herbs. Don't leave home without them.
Chapter 49 is called A Storm in Tyr, and the icon is Matt's dice.
Egwene thinks perhaps Elaine was right, that she had gone too far, but she could not bring herself to apologize. They sat in silence until Mamaji returned with the thief catcher, a man named Julian Sandar. He tells them that he'll help, but he needs to be quick about it because he's glimpsed men sneaking on rooftops and thinks he'll probably be summoned soon and put to work catching them. He's got an eye for Nynaeve that she doesn't appreciate, but he's an honest man and he assures them he can recover their stolen goods. Nynaeve lays out a silver mark for each black sister and tells Julian that she's paying, so she will dictate the terms. He is to find the women and no more. He doesn't love it, but he agrees, and they get down to descriptions and warnings of how dangerous they are. Julian is confident that he can find these women in a few days, and trots off. Nynaeve can feel a storm gathering. At bedtime, they all gather in Egwene's room so she can use the dream ring Trongril. By simple dumb luck and trial and error, Egwene has figured out a few rules of Teleron Rod, at least enough to figure out how to get around. She takes herself to the heart of the stone, to Kalendor. And there, 13 women sat cross-legged staring up at the sword. Leandrin looked straight at Egwene and smiled. Gasping, Egwene sat up in bed so fast she almost fell off the side. She had no idea how she got back out of the dream, but that's not the pressing issue. Elaine and Nynaeve are demanding to know what happened and why she came back so fast. They're waiting for us, Egwene said finally, and I think they know we're in Tyr. Outside, the storm broke over the city.
Julian Sandar is not my favorite character, but I do like him. In this chapter, he comes off a bit of a player, but not when it comes to his business. He sets clear expectations up front of what it will cost, but also lets them know that there's weirdness in town, and he could be pulled off the job for the High Lord's services. And when Nynaeve offers a bonus when the job is done, he turns it down, because he does not want to be seen as a person who you have to offer assurance against a bribe to. The whole straw hat thing kind of makes me envision an old samurai story the way that he's described, and I'm a sucker for a good samurai story.
That's so interesting. Like, his hat is often described as a flat conical hat, so I always picture it as a fez. But I guess cylindrical and conical are not the same thing. Huh.
Well,
I didn't remember that it was made of straw until now. And that makes way more sense for his hat to be one of those Asian straw cone-shaped hats. And now I feel really dumb. But I swear the Wheel of Time artwork usually shows him wearing a fez hat, so I don't think it's entirely my fault.
No, you're right. He picks up a fez hat later.
Oh.
Like, they team up, they do some things together. I think around the time they find the Penarch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he does switch out his straw hat for a fez hat later, but the way he gets introduced here, he's got the straw hat and he's got the clogs because he's walking around. It's very much a samurai kind of like vibe.
Okay, so he does switch out to a fez hat. And that's why I always picture him with the fez hat.
You're correct.
So
yes.
it's not my fault. All right. I did not remember Julian eyeing Nynaeve so much when he first meets her. And he's so put out when Mama G keeps shutting him down and telling the girls what a flirt and a player he is. Like, it's kind of funny.
It is.
You know, he has a pretty rocky start in this series, but he does redeem himself soon enough and proves himself to be useful.
Yes, he does. Nynaeve is really smart when she offers to pay the 13 silver marks.
Okay.
This way, she can dictate the terms, and Julian doesn't need to know about the stolen Angreal. They need to find the Black Ajah, but if they can do it without anyone finding out that they're Aes Sedai, that would be best. Mm-hmm. She's overpaying, but she's doing it so that she can have absolute control, which she thinks she needs to keep everyone safe. Nynaeve understands the value of money and does not part with it easily, so this is a big deal for her.
Nynaeve warns them again that these people are dangerous murderers, and they will have no problem killing all of them if they learn that Julian is looking for them. As we've seen from Matt and Rand, men in these stories sometimes have foolish ideas about women, but Julian clears that up for us. Quote, "When I was young," Sandar said, voice serious, "a cut purse put her knife in my ribs because I thought a pretty young girl wouldn't be as quick to stab as a man. I do not make that mistake anymore." End quote. Now, if we could just teach the Two Rivers boys that same lesson.
Right? Oy.
Quick, stick a knife in him. No?
It's good to see Egwene getting the hang of the world of dreams, even though she's still playing in dangerous waters that she cannot hope to comprehend. She may be a little overconfident in what she thinks she knows, but she's getting better at navigating it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she runs smack dab into the Black Ajah, losing the element of surprise. It seems the Black Sisters know the girls are in Tyr, and they are laying in wait to trap them. That's it for Chapter 48 and the first part of Chapter 49 of The Dragon Reborn. Join us next week to discuss the rest of Chapter 49 and 50, where Matt and Tom search Tyr for the girls, Matt confronts Komar, and then Blacksmith's got a blacksmith.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure that you rate and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever your favorite podcatcher might be. If you would leave us a positive review, it would really help us out. It makes us more visible so that more people can find us. You can tweet at us at Pod-Thru or email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com and tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Or find our Wheel of Time Pod-Thru channel on YouTube. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, do the things. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.